Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Thursday, February 3rd, and we've got lots to talk about today. I mean, we had the Wormhole exploit last night that, drained over $200 million worth of ETH from the Solana network. We have, Bank of England raising rates, which is really bleeding into the markets today. We also have the Qs pulling back after Facebook missed earnings. Big pullback there. All of that is really kind of affecting this market, and plenty to talk about today. So excited to see how today plays out. Before we start, CJ, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, Monty. Pretty surprised, honestly. Obviously, crypto fell last night, but I was expecting it to drop a little bit harder with the Nasdaq today. It's kind of just held its ground, but not whole much. Interesting to cover Wormhole. I mean, they should rename that project, especially after this. But regardless, excited to go into that. Like you'd mentioned, Bank of England raised rates from 0.25% to 0.5%. And then also today we had a decision by the European Central Bank to keep interest rates unchanged despite record inflation. However, they are going to decline on their bond purchases as kind of time progresses this year. So a little bit more dovishness coming out of Europe in terms of the central bank behavior when compared to kind of what we're doing at home. So it'll be interesting to see how that like macro systems view progresses and how these markets become or just act with a little bit more synchronicity.
Yeah, agreed. We're finally getting some clarity about, which kind of directions they're heading in. And, the DXY really pulling back hard today on the back of that news as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this week plays out. Excited to kind of dive into those stories. But how about we start with the Wormhole hack here? I'm going to start with the announcement on Twitter that came last night. This Twitter user is at Zero Revenue. He tweeted the Etherscan that, embedded in the Etherscan was this message from the Wormhole deployer. They said, "We noticed you were able to exploit Solana and mint tokens. We'd like to offer you a white hat agreement and a bug bounty of $10 million for exploit details and returning of the wrapped ETH you've minted." And so this was an interesting proposition when this came up. They're offering him $10 million to return the $250 million worth of ETH that he had stolen from the Solana network. And this was a big hack because this was basically the wrapped ETH that was, backing up all the Ethereum staked on the Solana network. And, people were using that as collateral. People were staking it. So basically, there was nothing backing the ETH on Solana after this exploit. And a lot of people wondered, what would this guy give it back? What is that $10 million enough of an appealing offer for him to give it back? Well, the answer was no. He did not want to give it back. But fortunately, the Solana VCs have very deep pockets. We're talking about companies like Jump and Alameda that, have millions of dollars in play here. And because of that, they need to support this network. So, if we look at the Solana chart, we did see some sell pressure last night when this news broke. I'm going to just pull up the hourly chart. But ultimately, it's held up very well. And that's on the back of these VCs injecting incredible amounts of capital. But as you can see, when this news kind of broke last night, we were met with some heavy sell pressure. But now, all funds have been restored. Wormhole is back. So, that's one thing that's, I guess, reassuring is the fact that, and one reason why we like to kind of align our investments with these sort of big names in the space like Jump, Alameda, Andreessen Horowitz is because when stuff like this happens, they're forced to kind of defend their position. They're forced to, defend this protocol, make sure it works. So, this was a scary thing. And, one thing that really concerns me is the fact that, this is an issue that probably will not be unique to the Solana bridge because, bridges have inherent vulnerabilities. And I think Vitalik did a nice job of summing this up a couple months ago. He talked about how the future will be multi-chain, but not cross-chain. And in the last year, we've had, obviously an emergence of all these various layer ones like, Luna, Solana, AVAX, Phantom, all of them with slightly different security protocols and just, general like ways of operation. But if we look at the inherent vulnerabilities of using a bridge, those bridges often need to kind of circumvent some of those security features inherent to any one of those one chains in order to conduct cross-chain transactions. So, Vitalik made a great point. He called this months ago that there are serious issues with, trying to go cross-chain, bridging to various chains, and those issues are, security vulnerabilities. So we're seeing that play out here. I've seen that kind of fear spread into, Luna as well. I've seen some other people that mention that, this exploit is also possible on the Luna bridge, but it seems like so far there hasn't been any exploits in that arena as well. So scary stuff there. But, like I said, the deep pockets of the VCs that are backing Solana stepped in and, put all this ETH back. But what's interesting is the guy who hacked the ETH, he's actually already started spending it. He bought 44 million worth of Solana. He bought some Bored Ape NFTs, and he also bought some other NFT tokens, as well as some other stuff. So, I mean, that money will be watched for a long time. People are still watching the money from the Bitfinex hack, all the way back in 2013. That crypto is still being watched. So, this capital will be
It
watched.
moved
Yeah,
this week
yeah,
from
exactly.
26 that wallet that was untouched from like 2016. That was really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, that we'll be able to see where all these funds go. But I mean, 80,000 ETH, $250 million stolen in an instant because of this guy's, ability to just exploit the code on the bridge. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, I saw some like crypto Twitter account yesterday. I think it might have been like Inverse Bra or one of the funny ones, but they're like, Vitalik told us the bridges weren't safe. And yeah, I mean, perfect reference to that article. So really a bunch of crazy stuff happening. But I want to move to the equity market where Facebook has really had a historic day. Unfortunately, not to the upside. But you look at Google after earnings, did quite well. Apple's been hanging in there. Amazon, a little bit of a tumble. Same pretty much story with Tesla, just kind of a downward consolidation. Facebook's rallied a couple percent, but I mean, as you can see, you struggle to even see the candle when you first open the chart because it's such a gap. So I mean, we'll see. Also have that bearish crossover. So just a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, I think the way that the market is perceiving Facebook and Meta right now is just the fact that, they haven't been able to dominate their industry and really gain like significant users. And it seems as if this like metaverse play is more of a gimmick to like stay relevant, as opposed to like pure and true innovation. I know like Zuckerberg's been all over Oculus Rift and virtual reality for the past 5 to 6 years. And like Monty and I have had virtual, like we used to play a lot of VR, but like the technology really has not improved in like 4 or 5 years. So we'll see. Mike Schoonover says, shocked that mana is green in the wake of Facebook. Yeah. I was interested in that as well. Because I do have short positions in sand and mana. But I think the news broke a little bit more towards like last night. So, if it were to hit, it probably would have hit last night during the Asian session. Still, that being said, I do think it's going to be more of a slow bleed for those. You don't really lose all your money at once in bear markets. That's kind of the nature of it. It's a slow bleed, so you're kind of in denial that whole time. So we'll see what happens with that one. But let's get back to the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, because we did highlight some critical levels that they were hitting yesterday. But now, we're being rejected right at that midpoint. Let me scroll up and show you. So we had highlighted the middle of these ranges and, said kind of explicitly yesterday, it's going to be a turning point in the trend, I think. Whether or not we can truly break up above this midline of the trend and continue towards all-time highs, or are we going to lose momentum midway through and then potentially revisit the bottom of the range at roughly 4,300? Right now, if you were to just look at this from a technical perspective, You're starting to see crossovers. You're starting to see declining bullish momentum with decreasing volume going into a level of resistance. So, I mean, it's just not really lining up in favor of the bulls. And that's all I can really say from a objective standpoint. Very similar picture on the NASDAQ. Even a greater rejection, though, and even a deeper crossover foreshadowing on the Stochc RSI there. So, it doesn't mean we have to go into a catastrophic bear market. I mean, it doesn't really matter the definitions at this point. You can only play price action is the main point, but I'm just looking for kind of a continuation of bearish price action at this point now, especially after making that lower high. Doesn't mean, like I said, doesn't mean it has to be catastrophic. Like, for instance, we made a lower high at this particular point. But typically when you're going to do that, you will at least come back and test the bottom of the range, or at least make some kind of higher low. I expect us to do something similar to that around, 13,800 or potentially 14,000 square just on the NASDAQ. But that's, like I said, I'm surprised that Bitcoin and crypto are not down greater with the broader equity market selling off. Something that we've been highlighting a lot with Bitcoin was just this ascending triangle on the 4-hour charts. This is the daily chart, however, so it looks a little less steep. But now you can see we've lost that upward sloping trend line. And typically when that occurs, you're going to revisit at least the bottom of the range here, potentially at 35 or 34K. You pair that with the fact that you have, same story as the S&P, declining volume going into a level of resistance with the bearish crossover on the Stochc. So it's not lining up for like a bullish entry. And, that's just how we have to view it objectively at this point.
Yeah, one thing that is still very much intact, CJ, is that downward sloping trend line that you pointed out. It was a couple weeks ago now. This thing still continues to act as kind of an indication of that we can't get any significant upward momentum going anytime we kind of make any of these moves. Each time it's promptly met with some strong profit taking after just brief positive price action, implying that this trend is still very much alive. So until we kind of start to break out of this, until we start to really round down here at the bottom, it just doesn't look like an ideal time to be long in the crypto market right now.
Yeah, I mean, at least until we get some certainty around the traditional equity markets, global macro is still seeping in, and crypto is just not it's not an uncorrelated asset class, especially when you want institutional investors. They're going to be the same individuals who are de-risking NASDAQ stocks and whatever, and so you're going to get that bleed over. So, like I said, despite the fact we haven't had any violent action in the market, just because there's much more levered shorts at this point than levered longs. So I don't know if you're going to get like a violent cascade downward. It could be more of just like a slow sideways continuation bleed without really much of anything at all. We should cover this though. What about Shiba Inu? Because I have not looked at that one in a while. Let's just hit it briefly.
Sure.
I can bring it up. This is kind of one that I was like just describing. It's just been like a very slow bleed. If you're not going to have retail capital in this space, you're going to be having a hard time to get things like Doge and SHIB really going. You have Elon behind Doge, but you don't really have anything behind SHIB. We are at a local level of support, but if we lose that, you're looking at multiples of levels down just without really any substantial support because of the initial pump that came. And even if the Robinhood listing occurs, I don't know if there's that much of a strong catalyst in the wake of a bear market to send it substantially higher. Maybe you get a couple days of a bounce, but probably going to be sold into like the rest of them were. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking for continuation until we see any resemblance of bullish price action. You have a lot of people still holding this thing. And if bear market conditions continue, it's just going to be a slow bleed downward. But yep.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you would like to join CJ and I in the crypto room, you can do so at the link below me, marketrebellion.com/trycrypto. You can try the first week for just $7. We got a pro charting service, 24/7 chat with traders from all around the world. We publish actionable trade insights, news, have an education curriculum, and a whole lot more. So definitely head over there and check it out if you want to up your crypto trading game. And please like and subscribe on the way out. It really helps out the channel. But that's all we got. We'll see you at the members only Doge of the day. Have a great rest of your day and take care.